Within minutes of starting her first real job at the family café, Jenny snapped and threatened to walk out. Not after a long shift, not after a bad day. Right there, in front of customers, family, and cameras. This was supposed to be the fresh start, the money plan, the escape route from living under her in-law's roof. Instead, one slow cup of coffee turned into public tension, bruised egos, and a moment where everyone froze. You could see the panic set in. The pressure to earn fast collided with the reality of being unprepared, and nobody knew where to look. Sumit spoke up. Jenny felt cornered. The customer waited. Silence stretched. Was this about coffee, or was this about something far messier brewing underneath? Because what happened next hinted this cafe problem ran way deeper than a broken machine. The morning after the soft launch felt quiet in a strange way. On the surface, there was optimism. Smiles. Talk about ceremonies and blessings and people stopping by for samples. Underneath, chaos sat untouched. Food tossed because of contamination, confusion about roles, zero clarity on profit. Sumit tried to stay upbeat, holding on to the idea that opening the doors was a win by itself. His parents nodded along, proud the family cafe was finally real. Jenny did not share that calm. Her focus stayed locked on one thing only: money. Not later, not someday. Now, living under Sumit's parents' roof weighed on her. Every conversation circled back to independence. A place of their own. Space. Privacy. Dignity. In her mind, this cafe was not a passion project. It was an exit strategy. That urgency showed in her tone, her pacing, her frustration. She wanted results before the ink even dried on the signboard. And while everyone else spoke about patience and first days, Jenny counted invisible losses. There was a quiet irony in the air. The same person who pushed hardest for fast money also looked the most uncomfortable with the actual work ahead. You could feel the tension before a single customer walked in. Sumit sensed it too. He tried to balance reassurance with realism, a tricky spot for someone who spent years avoiding conflict. The parents watched closely, saying little, absorbing everything. The cafe had not even begun, yet the pressure already felt heavier than the furniture. Around this point, the optimism started to feel fragile. Smiles came with pauses, encouragement sounded forced, and every mention of money made the room tighter. Jenny repeated her goal like a mantra. Earn fast, move out, start fresh. But goals do not erase learning curves. They do not replace preparation, and they do not cancel the stress of being watched by family while failing in public. This was the moment where behavior began to shift. Jenny softened her usual resistance. No snapping back, no sarcasm. When Sumit's mother suggested assigning roles, Jenny did not argue. When Sumit said nobody should stand idle, Jenny did not push back. She nodded and moved. It caught everyone off guard. The silence was louder than any argument. This was the point where money pressure began rewriting how everyone acted, and nobody knew if it would hold. Sumit seemed hopeful. Maybe this was growth. Maybe necessity was forcing teamwork. Or maybe it was temporary compliance driven by fear. He watched closely, torn between relief and concern. The parents exchanged looks. Cooperation felt good, but it also felt unfamiliar. Nothing here had been tested yet. No customers. No stress. Just anticipation. Jenny's anxiety never left the room. It followed her movements. It sat in her shoulders. Every second felt counted. She did not want encouragement. She wanted proof this plan worked. And deep down, there was another layer. If this failed, there was no backup excuse. No outside force to blame. The cafe was family. Failure would feel personal. As roles became clearer, the weight shifted again. Cooking went to the kitchen. Cleaning stayed constant. And then came the decision that mattered more than anyone admitted. The coffee machine. New, expensive, symbolic. Jenny was assigned to it, the only coffee machine in the area, according to Sumit. A draw for customers, a chance to make real money quickly. The room paused. This was not a casual task. This was the front line. First impressions. Speed. Confidence. Every mistake visible. Jenny hesitated for a breath, then agreed. And this agreement quietly set the stage for everything that unraveled next. The first paying customer arrived quietly, but his presence instantly raised the stakes. Jenny's eyes widened, a mix of excitement and panic. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment where money could finally become tangible. But there was a catch. The coffee machine was new, complicated and unfamiliar. She moved toward it with determination, but her hands trembled slightly. Every step felt magnified under the gaze of her family, Sumit standing close, and the camera capturing every hesitation. The irony was sharp. Her desire for fast cash collided with her inability to execute even the most basic tasks. Grinding beans, frothing milk, measuring precisely, all suddenly felt like a language she hadn't learned. Time stretched. The customer's expectation hung over her, a quiet, growing pressure that Jenny could feel pressing against her chest. You could see it in the way she fumbled for the milk container, checked the grinder repeatedly, and paused mid-step as if the machine were mocking her. Her mind raced with conflicting priorities. Hurry, don't fail, make this right, make money now. That combination often triggers a freeze response, where muscles lock and decisions stall. This is a perfect storm of stress meeting inexperience. Every second passed with weight. She reassured herself out loud, repeating, I know how to do this, I can do this. But in the middle of repetition, she realized she didn't know which button activated the grinder. Her voice cracked slightly as she called for help. Sumit's father stepped forward, attempting to guide her, but even he looked unsure, fumbling through instructions as quickly as he could. It was a chain reaction of nervousness. The customer's patience, invisible at first, began to thin. Jenny's urgency clashed against the reality of her skill gap, and the air between them felt thick with tension. Every minor delay felt monumental. Pouring milk took longer than expected. Grinding beans required repeated attempts. She triple-checked every container and button, trying to avoid a visible mistake. Each correction only added to the suspense, highlighting a gap between intention and performance. Her family noticed. Sumit's eyebrows furrowed. Parents exchanged quick glances. This was the first true test, and the cracks were already showing. It's one of those moments where you realize that desire alone cannot replace preparation, and everyone around feels the ripple of stress. The customer, polite but visibly frustrated, finally stepped in. The grinder isn't plugged in, he said. Jenny froze, realizing the simplest reason had been overlooked. Her cheeks flushed, a mix of embarrassment and self-reproach. The pressure wasn't just about coffee. It was about competence, reputation, and the fear of disappointing everyone around her. Even a small oversight became amplified when layered with family scrutiny, cameras, and the weight of personal stakes. Jenny tried to maintain composure, her hands moving quickly now, connecting the cord, pushing beans through, frothing milk with shaky precision. But every step carried self-doubt. This sequence highlighted a common psychological phenomenon. Stress narrows focus, and in trying too hard to succeed, people often stumble over tasks they normally handle. Her desire to earn, to assert independence, collided head-on with her momentary incapacity, making the missteps feel public and dramatic. Sumit watched closely, stepping in at intervals to offer gentle guidance, but each intervention underscored that Jenny wasn't fully ready. The dynamic shifted subtly, where moments before she had authority over her own performance, now she relied visibly on assistance. The customer, attempting to be helpful, completed steps that Jenny could not manage alone, intensifying the public nature of the struggle. Humiliation mingled with determination in real time. Pressure and inexperience create a perfect storm for embarrassment, and it's clear that money anxiety alone cannot carry someone through a critical test. The clock ticked slowly. The first cup, the first sale, was inches from completion, yet every action felt like it required negotiation with reality. Jenny's urgency about earning collided repeatedly with procedural delays. The contrast was stark, a burning need for money on one hand, a lack of practical skill on the other. Observers could feel the tension radiating, waiting to see how she would recover and whether the fragile cooperation with Sumit and the family would hold. Sumit's expression shifted slightly as he realized this wasn't a minor hiccup. Something deeper was at play. Jenny's struggle wasn't just about the machine. It was about preparation, patience, and managing the weight of expectation. He noticed the repeated hesitations, the quiet panic, the subtle signs of emotional overload. The first customer experience, meant to be a stepping stone, had become a mirror, reflecting gaps in readiness and the stress simmering beneath the surface. And that is when Sumit understood that this was more than a coffee mishap. This was a test of their teamwork and her ability to handle pressure. Sumit stepped forward, his tone calm but firm, the kind that immediately changes the room's energy. For the first time, the cafe wasn't just about making coffee or earning money. It was about standards, expectations, and accountability. Jenny froze, her hands hovering over the machine, realizing the mistake had become a public lesson. This was not gentle guidance. This was a mirror held up to performance under pressure. Her cheeks flushed as the weight of observation pressed in. Her ego flared subtly, a defensive spark igniting beneath the surface. The threat to quit, which moments earlier had been an instinctive response, now felt hollow. She wasn't leaving. Not really. It was a shield, a way to reclaim a sense of control in a situation where competence had been exposed. Sumit's correction was measured, pointing out what needed fixing while insisting the customer experience mattered. Jenny's internal dialogue raced. How could she recover? Could she perform under this scrutiny? The tension was visible, the kind that twists stomachs and tightens shoulders. She wasn't a bad person, just unprepared. And the urgency to earn fast only magnified the perceived failure. This is a common reaction when stress and high stakes collide. People often react defensively even when guidance is constructive. Her ego and need for independence clashed with reality, creating a microdrama that the family, the customer, and cameras silently witnessed. The subtle shift in power was undeniable. Sumit, normally easygoing and accommodating, now embodied authority. Jenny's usual confidence wavered as every correction highlighted gaps she hadn't anticipated. She followed instructions, but the public nature of the learning curve made each movement heavier. Her desire to succeed collided with visible flaws, emphasizing the contrast between intent and execution. Observers could see the friction building. It's a moment where ambition meets skill gaps, and everyone around feels the strain. Even small mistakes took on amplified meaning. Each fumbled pour, each delayed step, became a stage for judgment, both from family and from herself. Jenny's responses became a mix of determination and defensiveness. Sumit, aware of cultural and familial pressures, tried to maintain patience, yet clarity and standards demanded intervention. Mistakes are natural when learning a new skill, especially under scrutiny, but here, speed, accuracy, and composure were all required simultaneously, a combination that magnifies every small slip. The room felt smaller. The family watched. The first customer still lingered, aware the process was uneven. Jenny's face showed a flicker of panic, realizing that no one else's patience could extend forever. Her threat to leave earlier now seemed less like a plan and more like a psychological tool, an attempt to regain leverage in a moment where she felt powerless. Sumit's stance communicated a quiet truth. Accountability mattered, and protective shields could not replace action. He didn't humiliate her. He highlighted what needed to happen. This subtle difference created friction while emphasizing responsibility. Teamwork, previously fragile, began to fray under these conditions. Roles that seemed clear moments ago now appeared ambiguous. Instructions overlapped, miscommunications multiplied. The urgency to succeed clashed with lack of preparation, exposing how quickly coordination can break under stress. Jenny's reliance on instructions and her repeated defensive pauses highlighted a deeper challenge. Achieving cohesion in a team under extreme pressure requires patience, emotional regulation, and clear boundaries. Each passing second amplified the stakes, and the CAF environment became a pressure cooker for relational dynamics as much as operational efficiency. Family members, quietly observing, registered every micro-reaction. Their opinions, though mostly unspoken, layered additional tension onto the room. Jenny's blush, the slight bite in her tone, Sumit's measured interventions, all created a network of emotional currents that pulled at everyone present. This is the moment when a small error reveals cracks beyond skill, trust, patience, and respect begin to test themselves in real time. The escalation was subtle, yet palpable. Jenny's defense mechanisms were activated. Sumit's authority had solidified. Small errors now carried emotional weight far beyond coffee. The first customer experience had revealed weaknesses, and the cafe's future hinged on responses to these pressures. Even without raising voices, the stakes had grown. Every glance, every pause carried meaning. Unspoken questions hovered. Could Jenny rise to the occasion? Could Sumit balance firmness with support? And how much longer could the family watch quietly before tensions boiled over? By the end of this sequence, the ripple of friction had extended beyond Jenny and Sumit. The entire family sensed the shift, absorbing tension silently while questioning roles, readiness, and endurance. The CAF was no longer a neutral workspace. It had become a stage for behavior, competence, and emotional responses under pressure. And just as the next challenge looms, everyone realizes the ripple effects are only beginning. The parents had been watching quietly at first, but now their presence felt heavier than ever. Every glance, every small sigh, carried weight. Silent judgment filled the corners of the cafe, unspoken but undeniable. They had invested in this venture, in their son, in the family's reputation, and yet here was chaos unfolding over a single cup of coffee. Jenny's struggle wasn't just hers anymore. It reflected on the entire family, their planning, their credibility, and the fragile hope that this cafe could work. The air thickened with unvoiced opinions, and even the smallest misstep now felt magnified under this collective scrutiny. Money pressure was warping communication. Requests became sharper, instructions clipped, patience thinner. Sumit tried to maintain calm, but even he could feel the invisible heat of judgment pressing down. Words were measured, politeness strained, and the subtle tension between support and criticism began to emerge. Jenny's anxiety wasn't just about earning. It was about performing under the combined weight of family expectations, financial urgency, and her own self-imposed pressure. You could almost hear her internal monologue racing. Every misstep here felt catastrophic, every delay noticed, every expression scrutinized. The parents' reactions revealed fractures in alliances. Sometimes they sided with Sumit's firmness, nodding slightly at corrections, eyebrows arched in quiet approval. Other moments, glances softened toward Jenny, as if to say, "She's learning. Give her time." Those split loyalties created subtle chaos. Communication fractured, tones shifted mid-sentence, and the emotional weight of trying to please everyone made simple tasks feel impossible. In these moments, viewers could see the dynamics that rarely make headlines: family loyalty colliding with standards, love clashing with expectations. It's one of those rare situations where the audience feels both the empathy and the frustration in equal measure. The café, once a place of cautious optimism, now functioned as a pressure cooker. Minor errors turned into magnified incidents. A spilled cup, a delayed step, a shaky explanation, all became symbols of broader failure. Private stress collided with public embarrassment. Jenny's cheeks flushed with heat not only from the customer's gaze, but from the invisible audience of her in-laws. Sumit's father shifted uncomfortably, muttering under his breath, as if the weight of tradition and pride made him squirm. Every instruction carried an extra layer of tension, because the cost of mistakes was no longer just monetary, it was emotional, relational, and reputational. The split loyalties extended beyond the immediate cafe tasks. Family members offered advice in whispers, small nudges, subtle gestures of guidance, each with its own emotional charge. The invisible scoreboard in everyone's mind counted every misstep. Jenny noticed it. Sumit felt it, and the customer sensed it. The subtle strain of trying to balance personalities while managing a new business became almost palpable. These are the moments when the camera captures more than coffee making. They capture human fragility, unspoken tension, and the slow burn of conflict building beneath polite facades. Financial urgency amplified every reaction. A suggestion or correction felt like criticism magnified. A question about steps seemed like judgment of competence. Jenny's anxiety spiked, Sumit's patience tested, and the parents' silent scrutiny made normal interactions fraught with tension. Even small disagreements over process became emotionally charged. It was a clear illustration of how money stress distorts communication. People lose calm, rational reasoning gives way to immediate reactions, and every decision feels heavier than it truly is. The audience can sense the fragility, one wrong step, and cooperation collapses entirely. As tasks unfolded, it became clear that the combination of inexperience, pressure, and family scrutiny was creating a volatile environment. Minor frustrations were amplified, tension simmered beneath smiles, and loyalties wavered constantly. Jenny's effort to meet expectations clashed with Sumit's insistence on standards, and both collided with parental judgment. The cafe was no longer just a business venture. It had become a mirror, showing cracks in relationships, exposing raw nerves, and testing emotional endurance. This is a situation where anyone watching can feel the rising heat and know that if these pressures continue, the consequences will reach far beyond coffee. By the end of the morning, it was evident the tension had spilled outside the immediate tasks. The family, already divided in subtle ways, was now caught in a web of scrutiny and stress. Jenny's reactions, Sumit's interventions, and the parents' silent commentary created a complex environment that demanded delicate navigation. The stakes were no longer about speed or quality of service, they were about relationships, pride, and trust. One misstep here wouldn't just affect the day's earnings, it could challenge the foundations of family harmony itself. And as the camera panned across the room, the unspoken question lingered: could this cafe survive without testing the bonds between Jenny, Sumit, and the family? Online, reactions to Jenny's cafe meltdown were immediate and fierce. Fans debated every moment, replaying clips, dissecting her movements, her tone, her expressions. One camp argued she was overwhelmed but trying, pointing out the difficulty of learning a complex task under pressure and public scrutiny. Another camp wasn't so forgiving, seeing the hesitation, the fumbled steps, and the threat to quit as emblematic of entitlement and impatience. Across social media, hashtags trended with comments ranging from supportive to brutally honest. Viewers everywhere could feel the tension, and everyone seemed to have a verdict ready. Jenny's performance had become a mirror for the audience's own ideas about responsibility, composure, and urgency. Fans also focused on Sumit. Some praised him for patience and standards, saying he was holding the line while balancing family dynamics. Others questioned whether his interventions added to Jenny's stress or undermined her confidence. The conversation spilled into deeper territory. How do cultural differences, family hierarchy, and money pressure intersect in real life? Observers noted that the stress didn't exist in isolation. Jenny was navigating a new country, a new family, and a high-stakes environment simultaneously. It was stressful, yes, but also revealing, because every choice, pause, and reaction now had an audience beyond the calf walls. This is the kind of moment where you realize online reactions can feel almost like another layer of pressure for reality TV participants. Jenny's behavior was polarizing, but the underlying forces were relatable. Insecurity, fear of judgment, and financial stress shaped her actions. She wasn't lazy or uncaring, she was anxious about failure and desperate to achieve independence. The audience could read the tension in every glance towards Sumit, every hesitation with the coffee machine, every defensive breath. That combination of fear and urgency made mistakes more visible, and for some viewers, more frustrating. For others, it elicited empathy. Her struggle had become a real-time study in how high-pressure situations magnify personality traits, for better or worse. Early open loops began to close in the social commentary. Would Jenny's threat to quit have lasting consequences? Could she really manage responsibilities while under scrutiny from family, customers, and a watching audience? Would Sumit's newfound assertiveness survive without causing further friction? Fans debated the answers endlessly, using past episodes and shared experiences to frame their arguments. Patterns emerged. Those who empathized emphasized the learning curve and external pressures. Those critical of Jenny honed in on her defensiveness, missed cues, and reliance on others. The CAF had become a battleground for personality, capability, and emotional regulation, visible not only to those present, but to thousands of viewers online. Discussions also highlighted the fragile balance between business and family. Many recognized the dangers of mixing high-stress work with unresolved relational dynamics. Money pressure amplified every tiny conflict. Missteps in execution were magnified by history, hierarchy, and personal stakes. Fans repeatedly returned to the same theme. The CAF's success depended not just on coffee, but on emotional endurance, communication, and trust. Jenny and Sumit were under a microscope, their private anxieties now public drama. Every misstep, pause, and defensive response had a ripple effect far beyond the CAF itself. Watching the social reactions, it was clear the audience wasn't just invested in coffee. They were tracking relationships, power shifts, and long-term sustainability. Ultimately, the conflict narrowed to a single question that lingered across every post, comment, and clip shared online. Could Jenny, Sumit, and the family maintain cohesion under the relentless pressure of money, expectation, and scrutiny? The CAF was not simply a business. It was a test of endurance, emotional intelligence, and partnership. Fans were left considering the same tension that hovered in the CAF. What happens when ambition collides with inexperience, fear, and family dynamics? And while some anticipated growth, others feared the cracks had already formed, signaling challenges that might extend far beyond the walls of the CAF. Every viewer could see it. Success would demand more than effort. It would demand adaptation, patience, and courage under fire. By the end of the morning, it was painfully clear that wanting money does not automatically translate into readiness to earn it. Jenny's urgency, while real and relatable, collided repeatedly with her lack of preparation. Every step taken under pressure revealed cracks, small at first, then widening with each hesitation and misstep. The CAF, meant to be a fresh start and a symbol of independence, had become a mirror reflecting vulnerabilities, both operational and emotional. Sumit's calm interventions highlighted the contrast. He was prepared, measured, and clear in expectations, while Jenny's instincts leaned toward defense and impulse. The lessons here were stark and immediate: desire without skill, pressure without preparation, ambition without patience. None of these survive scrutiny intact. The tension that had been simmering now had a visible pattern. Minor delays became magnified under observation. Subtle defensive behaviors turned into open resistance in thought, if not in word. Every fumbled cup and awkward pause told the story of a pressure cooker environment, one that exposed limits faster than anyone expected. The family's silent judgment, combined with the customer's watchful presence, amplified the stakes. Each moment was a reminder that skill, patience, and emotional regulation matter as much as drive. Watching this unfold, it's almost impossible not to feel the weight of expectation and the fragility of relationships when money enters the equation. Jenny's threat to quit, which seemed dramatic earlier, now read as a defense mechanism rather than a plan. She needed control when her competence felt under attack. Sumit's role as enforcer of standards became clear. He had to balance compassion with accountability, guiding without smothering, instructing without breaking. That delicate line became the heartbeat of the day, revealing just how quickly teamwork can fracture under pressure. Small cracks had emerged in real time, and the audience could sense the precariousness. This was no longer about coffee, but about trust, competence, and patience. The parents, meanwhile, had shifted from quiet observers to emotional anchors, weighing every action against tradition, expectation, and pride. Their unspoken opinions carried weight, creating tension that extended beyond the CAF tasks themselves. Money pressure, high expectations, and inexperience were now colliding with personal dynamics in a way that threatened more than the day's sales. What had started as a simple business venture was turning into a test of endurance, judgment, and loyalty. As the day wound down, it became apparent that the CAF had achieved more than serving coffee. It revealed personality under pressure, competence under scrutiny, and relationships under strain. For Jenny and Sumit, the implications were sobering. The public lessons were clear, the private anxieties even clearer, and quietly, almost imperceptibly, the stakes extended. The CAF had the potential to force Sumit to choose sides, balancing support for his wife with loyalty to his family, a choice no one wanted, but everyone knew might come. With the first day behind them, the questions remain. Can Jenny grow into the role she desperately needs to master? Will Sumit maintain equilibrium between standards and empathy? And as the family CAF experiment continues, will ambition, pressure, and loyalty collide in ways that could redefine the household? The answers are still unfolding. And the next chapter promises drama, tension, and revelations that could shift alliances forever.